All right. So the Ford and Carter years. We're talking about Gerald Ford and we're talking about Jimmy Carter and their administration's attempt to remedy the nation's worst economic crisis in decades. Okay. Who can tell me anything about Gerald Ford or Jimmy Carter? Anything important? Nothing. Nothing real relevant. No one's got anything. Well, they were two presidents, and they both dealt with very troubled economic times. This stems over into other political and social issues we'll go into in just a second, okay? So as we move on here, there we go. All right, Gerald Ford, all right. A little background on Gerald Ford. He went to Michigan. He was actually the captain of the football team there. Just a little background there. Kind of has that, I don't say tough guy image. He's kind of a very intelligent guy, but underneath he likes to, be a leader. Kind of comes across that way. Gerald Ford comes into office after Nixon resigns. And he said he wasn't going to pardon Nixon, and he ends up pardoning Nixon, okay? This is not a very popular move at the time, but he does it anyways. Pardon, great question. Pardon means to basically, I don't want to say absolve or forgive, but it makes, should I define that? If you commit a crime, like you'll notice every president, before they go out of office, the last week of their presidency, they start signing pardons. And that means if you're convicted of a crime or you commit a crime, it basically wipes it off the record. So he gives Nixon a pardon for any crime that he's committed. He just wipes it off the record, and so he can't be convicted for that.
Did Obama do that?
Every president has done that. So they sign that, not for the previous president, but they generally sign pardons for people they know that have been convicted for all various crimes, or somebody they think was wrongly convicted, or they've served more than their sentence in some way. So every single president has ever done that, and that's one of the things. The last week of their presidency, month to week, everybody tries to see how many. It's kind of comes out in the news how many pardons they're going to give, and to whom, and what the reasons for thinking was. Some of them in the past that get a lot of scrutiny are generally people that have political connections, that people will be in jail and they'll give them a pardon, and they're like, well, that's because they're a friend of so-and-so. And so that kind of gets under a little scrutiny there, okay? So, yes?
My dad wants me to go home.
Okay.
On the bomb.
Well, you need to go address that in the office then. Okay, do you want to, can you accompany him there? All right, so one of the big issues, he's trying to move the country past Watergate, and they try to, what they call whip inflation, all right? So they unsuccessfully asked the public to cut back on oil, gas, and to save energy. And then the government tries to cut spending and urges higher interest rates to restrict credit. Okay, one of the things I'll point out about this, anytime you have higher interest rates, you're not spurring economic activity. We've since learned then that he's doing the exact opposite of what you want to do. And if you want to spur economic activity and productivity and actually bring prices down, you'd actually cut interest rates. So he actually does the opposite, which in turn hurts his political agenda, or his economic agenda, even more. But people don't realize that at the time. It's the same reason why we went over in the Depression. We did the exact opposite of what we should have at that time. Okay? Carrying out Nixon's foreign policies, Ford continues to negotiate with China and the Soviet Union. And I don't know if anybody heard also this morning, the president had a news conference yesterday about his meetings with the Chinese president and trying to forge a tighter bond there, especially concerning the Korean Peninsula. So that's ongoing today. Obviously, our relationship with China is very important. And then he signs the Helsinki Accords. And this is cooperation between Eastern and Western Europe. Okay. So again, we're trying to get both of them on the same page. So he's trying to continue that. All right, we're gonna do one more slide, and then we're gonna get to the document we want to go over. All right, here we go. All right, after Ford loses the election, Jimmy Carter promises to restore integrity to the presidency. So his thing is integrity. Does anybody know anything about the background of Jimmy Carter? He did not play football at Michigan. He did almost say quite the opposite. Not far from here, actually in Georgia, he's a small peanut farmer. And he kind of rose up the political ranks saying, you know, we need to address the concerns of all the common people and do all the right things.
I think my mom wants me to leave too. So
All right,
I'll leave it up.
check it out. Front desk. All right. He has a down-to-earth style, and he's very conscious of civil rights and for African Americans, women, and gets very, very few laws passed. In fact, he's very ineffective. One of the things he's most known for, it's not up here also, is he gives back the Panama Canal in Central America, which we helped create under Theodore Roosevelt. So that's also one of his issues. There's a lot of issues here that Jimmy Carter could have brought up that are very unsuccessful. Carter's foreign policy promotes human rights and basic freedoms, and he cuts off aid to some, not all, allies that mistreat their own citizens. So he's a lot about how you treat people. What are your moral standards in that regard? So, all right. Just take a minute if you need anything else off that, and then we're going to go to our document. All right, we're going to start with that. All right, so we have 5 different questions on here. I'm going to start with number 1. We're going to go over that, and then numbers 2, 3, 4, and 5, you're going to go over on your own. So number 1, it says before that, what did Ford do as president? So Gerald Ford replaced Richard Nixon as president. Ford was likable and honest, but he lost public opinion when he pardoned Nixon. Okay. The economy had gotten worse by the time Ford took office. Ford invited the nation's top economic leaders to the White House to discuss what to do. Ford promoted a program to slow inflation by encouraging energy conservation. This program failed. Ford then pushed for higher interest rates. This triggered the worst recession in 40 years. In foreign affairs, Ford relied on Henry Kissinger, the Secretary of State. Ford continued talks with China and the Soviet Union. In 1974, he participated in the meeting in a meeting in Helsinki. There were 35 countries, including the Soviet Union, that signed the Helsinki Accords. These were agreements that promised greater cooperation between the nations of Europe. What did Ford do about the economy? What did we say he did? You don't want to help me.
He whipped it.
He whipped it. Yes, he tried to whip the economy, but how did he try to do that? And what happened?
By raising interest rates.
Yes, by raising interest rates, and it backfired on him. So, okay, if you want to write that in there, number 1. So he tried to raise interest rates, it backfired. In turn, it slowed down the economy. So, there we go. All right, if you can work on 2 through 5 now, and then we'll go over that from there on your own. Okay.